Hi and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news headlines have been reported by world major English news channels and news agencies. So please watch it.
Tonight, the winter storm slamming parts of the east at this hour. The accidents, the treacherous driving, the images coming in now. And now record-breaking cold coming in for millions across the country. Whiteout conditions, drivers blinded by the snow, the accidents in the east, cars and trucks skidding off highways. Ice falling from a big rig smashing through the windshield of another vehicle. And tonight, much of the country now facing those record-breaking cold temperatures in single digits or well below zero. Lee Goldberg standing by with the forecast. Tonight, after years of the U.S. standing with Ukraine, the war of words. President Trump tonight calling President Zelensky a dictator. The president saying 24 hours ago that Ukraine shouldn't have started the war, even after the world witnessed Russia invade Ukraine. Tonight, Zelensky saying Trump is living in a disinformation space. Also tonight, the sweeping cuts coming to the Pentagon. Sources telling ABC News Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is calling for cuts, the most in more than a decade. Is the Defense Secretary also looking to remove a number of top generals? What we've learned tonight, a deadly mid-air collision, two planes crashing into each other, one plane then plunging to the ground. And the Delta crash, the cranes that have arrived to pick the passenger jet off that Toronto runway. And tonight, what we've now learned about that crash, the black boxes now recovered, amid questions about the crew's experience, what Delta's CEO is now saying. Tonight, authorities say this selfie tells the story. The suspects charged with breaking into the homes of pro athletes across the U.S. while they were away, while some were in games, including Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. What authorities saw in this photo. Tonight, the mother who gave up a baby boy at 5 months old after learning she was implanted with the wrong embryo. She gave the boy to his biological parents, and what she's saying tonight. The measles outbreak in the U.S. is expanding, what health officials are now warning. Tonight, the tears witnessed by so many, the chilling moment on the tennis court. The match halted, the tennis star suddenly breaking down because of who she saw in the stands. The lunar lander now in orbit just above the moon's surface tonight, the rare and spectacular view from the far side of the moon. And we told you about the seal discovered in the middle of the street in the Northeast, the rescuers who arrived. Hello. Tonight, the team now caring for the seal, and what an update right here. You'll see how that seal is doing now. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World.
Thank you. Your love for me is frightening. Happy Wednesday, everyone. As you know, it's super cold in NYC. I'd say Governor Hochul's face is frozen, but that would be redundant. This Saturday night, Kamala Harris will receive an NAACP Image Award for helping out people of color. They claim she did that by not becoming president. DOJ has stopped $10 million in U.S. tax money from going to Africa to fund male circumcisions. Not surprisingly, angry Democrats are calling it a dick move. During a recent presser, President Trump started listing the most insane examples of government spending. The most egregious one, of course, was the 6 figures spent to have Jerry Nadler's pants let out. Still didn't work. The stains. Australian wildlife officials have decided to euthanize dozens of whales that were stranded on a beach. And today, in fact, they had the difficult task of informing the whales' next of kin. I just have a Google search alert for whale stories. Saves time. Team USA Hockey wants Trump to attend their rematch against Canada this Thursday night. Trump said, if we win, we get Canada. And if they win, it doesn't matter because they still have to live in Canada. Suckers! While presenting an award at the BAFTAs, which is in England, Star Wars actor Mark Hamill's pants dropped to his knees. It looked pretty innocent until this little guy popped his head up from behind the lectern.
The U.S. president parroting Russia's lies this Wednesday night. The deepening rift between Ukraine and its most powerful ally.
He lives in this disinformation space.
And the concerns among Ukrainians in Canada.
What he wants to do about Ukraine is insane.
Fresh promises of a high-speed rail network between Toronto and Quebec City.
It'll turbocharge our entire economy.
And questions about whether the project will be full steam ahead or a political train to nowhere. And the Pope's health, how he's doing after being diagnosed with double pneumonia.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us.
Live, Tuesday 8:30 on ABC TV.
A rescue package to governments to pump $2.4 billion into the failing Whyalla Steelworks.
There's no industry that is more important for our nation than steelmaking.
Donald Trump calls Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator and accuses him of stealing US aid money.
Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Gotta move fast.
ASIO foils several plots by foreign nations to harm people on Australian soil and paints a grim picture of the security future. And the latest unemployment figures show more Australians are out of work. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Joe O'Brien. The federal and South Australian government.
Emergencies and Swiss politics and finance.
John Zaragostas, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
Good morning, I'm Oliver Farry and this is Daybreak. Hamas is set to return the remains of 4 hostages who were held in Gaza to Israel. The remains include Shiri Bibas and her 2 children and 84-year-old Oded Lishvitz. Each had previously had other family members returned alive in previous hostage for prisoner exchanges. European leaders rally around Volodymyr Zelensky after US President Donald Trump calls him a dictator who could soon have no country to rule. Zelensky had previously said Trump was living in a disinformation space after Trump said the Ukrainian president was to blame for Russia's invasion, giving rise to fears of an irrevocable rift between Kyiv and Washington. Olaf Scholz and Friedrich Merz face off in the last leaders' debate before Germany's federal elections on Sunday. Frontrunner Merz avowed a tough immigration policy, while Scholz said Russian aggression against Ukraine was one of the things that keeps him awake at night. And surfing the big wave in Portugal, where 2 French surfers take the top prizes at the annual Big Wave Challenge at Nazare's Praia do Norte in spectacular fashion. European leaders have been rallying behind Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock. Happening this hour, the bodies of the youngest hostages in Gaza will be returned to Israel.
Plus, the rift between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky deepens, and Sir Keir Starmer picks his side.
It's Thursday, the 20th of February. Your headlines. The bodies of 2 young children, their mother and a 4th Israeli hostage will be handed over by Hamas to Israel. We'll follow that live in Gaza and from Israel throughout the morning. President Trump doubles down, once again calling President Zelensky a dictator and has this warning for European allies.
This war is far more important to Europe than it is to us, and that there's a very big, beautiful ocean, a separation.
How innovative surgery involving a placenta restored the eyesight of an acid attack victim. Plus... Everybody stand up? No. Okay. The message from one of Manchester United's controversial co-owners as the embattled club faces Premier League woes. And in the sport, Manchester City are knocked out of the Champions League after being beaten 6-3 on aggregate by Real Madrid. A very good Thursday morning to you. Thanks for joining us here on Sky News Breakfast. Well, this hour we're expecting the release of the bodies of 4 hostages taken during the October the 7th attacks by Hamas. The youngest of the 251 hostages, Kfir Bibas, was 9 months old when he was kidnapped from kibbutz near Oz, along with his 4-year-old mother Ariel and mother Shiri. Their father, Yarden, was freed earlier this month. Hamas confirmed the 4th body to be released as that of 84-year-old journalist Oded Lifshitz. He was one of the oldest people to be kidnapped following the October the 7th attacks. His wife, Yoshevet, was kidnapped separately that day and was released by Hamas 16 days later. Well, here's the scene live in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza.
Is Asia Now.
It's 2 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 11:30 in New Delhi, and 1 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Grace Shin, and at this hour. Discord between the leaders of the U.S. and Ukraine as President Volodymyr Zelensky calls for American pragmatism and European unity after Donald Trump accused him of being a dictator. Impeached South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol becomes the country's first sitting head of state to stand trial in a criminal case as hearings open on his bid to impose martial law. And Myanmar hands over the first batch of hundreds of Chinese workers from online scam centers amid a multinational clampdown on operations. The leading UN entity on human rights spoke to CNA, urging efforts to spread awareness on how scammers are targeting vulnerable job seekers.
People are being released, with physical injuries and mental trauma. And the concern is that despite the high numbers of victims that we're seeing, we're not seeing people being identified as victims of trafficking.
The news.
The visibly frail Keith Besigye making a brief appearance in a civilian court on Wednesday as his lawyers try to secure his freedom. But the judge said the Ugandan opposition figure, who's been detained since November, was too unwell to follow proceedings, and he was taken back to prison in Kampala.
The justice of the case required that today there should be a remedy, there should be a decision, and it should be instant. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And to make matters worse, we have not been given any idea or clue as to when the decision will be given.
The 4-time presidential candidate. As South Africa prepares to host foreign ministers from the G20 countries, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he will not be attending. Amid strained diplomatic relations between Pretoria and Washington under President Donald Trump's new administration, Rubio criticized the country's policies as anti-American.
The G20 is a voluntary membership grouping. So if an important country like the United States looks like it's not participating, that's a negative sign. On the other,
the presidency.
The United Nations Human Rights Office has said that the fighting in Sudan has led to widespread human rights violations and abuses. The abuses range from attacks on densely populated areas, the deliberate targeting of health facilities, and ethnically motivated summary executions.
Attacks on civilians and civilian objects, as well as summary executions, sexual violence, and other violations and abuses, underscore the utter failure by both parties to respect the rules and principles of international humanitarian and human rights law.
The conflict in Sudan began in April 2023 and has now killed more than 28,000 people, forced millions to flee their homes, and left some families struggling.
In 2025, the situation has escalated further, with ongoing battles in multiple hotspots. Regrettably, civilians continue to bear the brunt of the escalating violence.
Welcome.
An estimated 3.2 million people have crossed into neighboring countries including Chad, Egypt and South Sudan. The UN is now calling for an arms embargo on Sudan.
Thank you very much for giving time to Amir Shekel 5858. I am Amir Shekel. Have a good life. Bye-bye.